Making sales social to me means being your authentic self, realizing that everybody else is already taken. So focus on being you. Makes it so much easier to tell the truth when you're being yourself and let it out, because we all laugh, smile, cry, get nervous, get anxious. But the sooner you just dive into that, I think you'll win and you'll develop relationships a lot quicker.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales, marketing, and business. Join host Bryn Tillman as she brings you the best tips and strategies our guests are teaching their clients, so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Here is your host, Bryn Tillman.
Welcome back to Making Sales Social. I'm so excited about this episode. We've got Casey Jacox, the author of Win the Relationship, Not the Deal, which teaches 6 common sense strategies. Casey's no-nonsense and personal approach to building authentic relationships helps humans improve self-awareness, helps them ditch their ego, and find simple ways to build lifelong relationships that for salespeople can really help us grow our business. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited to have a fun conversation with you.
I'm excited too. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get to the 6 common sense strategies?
Well, I spent over 20 years in corporate. I was a college athlete. I was hashtag Uncle Rico for the Napoleon Dynamite fans out there. I have to mention the college football, and because I learned a lot about adversity, grit, resilience, goal setting through playing sports. I know that sports always don't apply to every person, so I'll be sensitive of different analogies to use. But I was a seller for 20 plus years, moved into executive leadership, and had this idea about 10 years ago when this phrase hit me about, we have to win people. I was mentoring folks. We have to win relationships. And even when you lose a deal, you can still win a person on how you respond. Are you staying neutral in your thought? Are you, however you go about doing that, there's still ways to bring out positivity to the person you're working with. And it hit me like, that's the title of the book. But I did not want to write the book when I was still in corporate, because I didn't want to have that to be an out or an excuse, and have myself not fully focused, because I wanted to be all in on my corporate job. And then when the time came for me to part ways, which was it was a nice divorce. I'm still great friends with all my former employees, executives, et cetera. And I spent 4 months on writing, and it's everything I've ever thought it would be, except who I'm serving. And when I left corporate, and I also did not anticipate getting into coaching. I thought I might be a speaker, because I do like speaking, and I did not know that starting a podcast as well for fathers would bring all this together. And, fast forward, 2 years later, someone said, "Do you realize you started a business in a global pandemic?" I'm like, that's actually pretty cool. I know it. I didn't ever sit back to think about that, but that's really how it happened. And it's so fun just helping people slow down to go fast. It's fun to give people a tool that, as the author, I've read this book 8 or 9 times through the editing process. When I narrated the Audible, I still learning from myself, which tells me,
I love that.
These are lifelong lessons that I'm not perfect at it. I'm the author, but it gives us a tool to get back to center on ways to kind of figure, okay, where are my gaps? What are things I'm not doing that I need to get better at?
Love that. So I'm going to jump deeper into those 6 common sense strategies. But before I do, we ask all of our guests to answer one question, which is, what does making sales social mean to you?
Making sales social to me means being your authentic self, realizing that everybody else is already taken. So focus on being you. Makes it so much easier to tell the truth when you're being yourself.
I agree.
I would just say simple as that. Just be yourself and let it out, because we all laugh, smile, cry, get nervous, get anxious. But the sooner you just dive into that, I think you'll win and you'll develop relationships a lot quicker.
Yeah, you can't have relationships that are inauthentic, because they'll blow up pretty soon. So I love that. Just be yourself. So I thank you for that. Let's dive in. So 6 common sense strategies to win the relationship, not the deal. So let's start with number 1. What's the first strategy?
The power of the golden rule. Treat people the way we want to be treated. When we're 3 or 4 or 5 years old, our parents taught that. Some parents did, maybe our teachers did. But yet when we get into corporate America, we forget that advice. We think we're bigger than everybody. We can be rude to our admin. We can flip someone off. We can come in with our negative energy to an environment, to a meeting. Maybe I got in an argument with my spouse, my child, my wife, whoever it may be, and I bring that negative energy into a meeting or my environment, that's my fault. That's not my team's fault. So I think it's a good way to kind of realize, again, when I played quarterback a long time ago, if I didn't bring positivity into the huddle, well, I didn't help the team. And so I think that same mindset, when we come into an office, be someone that, is a fountain of energy, not a drain, not sucking it out. Be someone that deposits into the bank, not constantly withdrawing.
I love that. It's interesting you see the golden rule. I've been hearing this platinum rule lately, which is treat people the way they want to be treated. What do you think of that?
I like it, but again, make sure that we're you're doing what's also good for you and being you. And if you're doing something to be not you, if you're only worrying about someone else and not worrying about like you staying centered with yourself, then I would only have a challenge to that is make sure you're still being yourself.
Fair. That's a very good add to that. I love that. So you can treat them the way they want to be treated as long as it doesn't contradict the way you want to treat people. I love that.
And I will also say one thing. The very few first lines of the book, when my son was 7 years old, he said, "Daddy, what do you do for your job?" And I could have told him, "Well, Dad's a senior account executive, turned president, blah, 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 of staff augmentation, providing consulting resources that do UI, UX, and blah, 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 blah." He'd be like, "What does my dad do?" So I simplified it. I said, "You know what, bud? When you're older, I'll explain it to you. But what dad does, he makes friends for a living." And my buddies were like, "You can't say that. He's going to go think he can't. You get money because you have friends." I said, "Why can't I say that?" It's exactly what I do. When a friend needs help, I help them. If you as my friend needed help, would I lie to you and steer you elsewhere? No, I'd set your expectations. I'd be honest. I'd say, "Hey, let's find you. If I can't be the one to help you, I'd find you a different friend." And so that, again, simplifying the mindset of what we do, for me, it was a super helpful way as I train people, as I teach people now, as I remind myself.
I love that. I think that's brilliant. So what's number 3?
2, actually. So 2, we go into.
All of that was just in number 1.
So excited. I know.
Number 2.
Expectation management.
Okay.
Set clear expectations. Too often relationships get eroded. Think about last time you bought something. Someone said it was going to be here on time. They told you they're going to send you something in the mail. Meetings at 10 o'clock. We showed up at 10:18. Oh, Bryn's got stuff. She's probably busy too. Or are you setting someone's expectation? "Hey, I'm going to be late. Hey, here's what's going on." I'm a big believer in over communicating. Went ahead, get ahead of things that someone might be thinking of. Don't assume. My mom told me earlier, you make an ass out of you and me.
Right. I remember
the old joke as kids. But I just think, again, bringing focus and energy to expectation management, it sets clarity for relationship. You build trust a lot quicker by saying what you're going to do and go do it. And I think our younger generation, I hate to be the old guy here, but we're on text, we're on Instagram, we're doing all these messaging where sometimes we can't control the tone of those expectations or how we communicate them. And I believe that's a miss. And so sarcasm, when my kids want to have friends over, they'll say, "Hey, I'm going to text them." I said, "Sounds like you don't want to have them come over for a play date." "What do you mean?" I said, "Pick up the phone and call them." I make them call. And
video chat.
Right. Do something, but just bring that kind of human element to it. But anyway, bringing it back to chapter 2, it's all about this clear setting expectations. And I provide examples where I did not do a good job of that in my career. And there's exercises throughout each chapter too that kind of help you.
Oh, that's fantastic. One of the things I liked that you said was that you believe in over communication. Over the weekend, my best friend from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is from Brazil, and she was in States, and she and her sister stayed over this weekend, and there was an interpretation around communication, right? Because you're between Portuguese and English. And ultimately what she said, and I think this leads right into what you said, is when you don't communicate it enough, you're sweeping it all under the rug, and then you might trip. And I thought that was great. And that was like some translation from Portuguese, but I thought that was awesome. So I thought I'd share that. So they might trip.
Well, you actually made me think of something too. One of the best trainings I ever went through was my first job out of college. It was called the cigar box training.
Looking to up your LinkedIn game? The Social Sales Link team has you covered with our LinkedIn Sales Accelerator, a guided social selling program that includes training, coaching, and so much more. Visit socialsaleslink.com/in for more details. Again, that's socialsaleslink.com/in. in.
So imagine my hand as a cigar box, and these are 5, instead of these are cigars or fingers, but this is emotions instead, or experiences. So let's say that you do something that frustrates me. I don't want to deal with it because it's, or Bryn's late. All of a sudden, my fingers, our emotions are now getting tight and strong. And now that cigar box is just, we're trying to close it and not deal with these things or these frustrations or experiences. And then randomly you do something that's so silly and so simple, and I explode. It's not your fault. That's my fault because I did not set expectations or communicate clearly. Maybe you did something that frustrated me, but you didn't even know it. Am I giving you the benefit of the doubt? Right. Am I slowing down to go fast? And so that's, another example where,
that communication is critical. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right. Now are we on number 3?
We are.
Yay.
Yay. The difference between hearing and listening. I would say, don't just listen to your customers. Don't just hear your customers, listen to them. Sounds simple, yet when you're talking, looking at my smartwatch, looking at my phone, texting while you're talking, or am I removing that, treating you like you're the only person left in the world, making you have that Maya Angelou moment, not what I said, but how I made you feel when you leave. And you're like, man, he was different.
Yeah.
He actually listened. He didn't, well, but let me tell you about myself. No, it's another question. Wow, that sounds like someone else. And when we make it more about someone else, weird, they open up. Weird. Now we have commonality, which leads to rapport, which leads to trust, which leads to a relationship. Imagine that, everybody. But it takes listening, right? And listening is such a gift. And it's something you can practice, believe it or not.
Yeah, I love that. Jeffrey Gittimer says, are you listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? And, something like that. So obviously listen to understand, not listen to respond. So I love that. That's awesome. Go ahead. You want to?
I was just going to say, in 2020, when we were dealing with, the craziness of all craziness, we got election, we got COVID, very similar line. It hit me like lightning. He said, if we listen to learn versus listen to persuade, what would happen to our relationships?
I love that. Listen to learn versus listen to persuade. That's great. That's a great line. Write that down. If you're listening to this on our podcast, that's a great line. Listen to learn.
Maybe we should make t-shirts.
Listen. Yes. Yes. I think that I would buy one. So number 4.
Power documentation. So most sales people don't like using these 3-letter words, and everyone's going to get squirmish. Your CRM, right? Because CRMs are only for our leaders and managers because they just want to know what we're doing. They want to micromanage us. Wrong. You guys, everyone out there, CRMs are gold to me. I think it made me look like I went to Harvard. It made me look like I was the smartest in the room always, just because I listened and I documented, and it gave me a tool to figure out how to follow up with people because they're telling me what to do next. They're giving me information I'm using to then ask questions, not calling to convince people. I'm using all that data I gather through conversations and then using it to further the relationship. So that really chapter talks about, again, painful lessons of how I was not good at that early in my career. One of the goals when writing the book when I wrote was I didn't want to have a sales book that says, look at me, I'm so great, I'm all this. I wanted to be like, what? Look at my gaps. Look at my failures. Look at the things I stunk at, and don't follow the same mistakes early in my career.
Sometimes the what not to do is a better lesson than what to do in a lot of ways. So I love that. I have a friend who, since smartphone, I think since her BlackBerry somehow carried through, she has a CRM for her company, but personally, everyone that goes into her contacts, she has notes on the date they met, where they met. So we were at a networking meeting. This guy comes up to her. He goes, you look so familiar. I feel like I've met you. And she said, well, let's see. And he goes, what do you mean, let's see? And she opens up her contacts and she looks up his name. And she's like, yeah, we met 5 years ago at a conference in Philadelphia. And you have, 2 kids that are in Wissahickon school district. And he's like, oh my gosh. She's like, everyone I've ever met is in there. So
that's so cool.
It's so cool. It's
that's
very
uncommon
cool.
Right there. And that's a great, I might steal that. What's your friend's name?
Kimberly Levin.
Shout out Kimberly. You coached the coach today. Well done.
Yeah, she's awesome. Fabulous. So, and she's actually an amazing interview if you ever want somebody. You do fathers. So, but if anyone's listening and you want to interview a really cool person, she's great. All right, number 5.
5, it kind of goes back to the question you asked me earlier about making sales social. Is really, it's about letting your authentic self shine. It's about giving tools and ideas and stories and experiences on why being ourself is the number one most important thing. The worst advice, I hate to call some leaders out when they say fake it till you make it. I cannot stand that advice.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's the worst. And why would you fake something you're not? To me, it's if I'm flying an airline, if I'm a passenger, I don't want my pilot faking it till they make it. You're going to drive insecurities. You're not going to be who you are. But I think sometimes the power of realizing that you don't have all the answers, the power of saying, I don't know, is a gift. One of my mentors in life, his name's John Kaplan. He said, it's okay not to know every answer. It's just not okay not to do anything about it. And that to me has always resonated, no matter how successful or unsuccessful or whatever stage in your career, when we show we can ask for help, I think as leaders, it does amazing things for your culture, because my equation for leadership is humility plus vulnerability equals leadership. And that power of being yourself, power of saying, hey, I don't have all the answers, but let's figure it out together, allows for deeper connection, whether it's internal or external.
That's great. And I don't think people do that enough. I think they're very transaction driven. And I think they miss that point significantly. So that's a great, not just a reminder, but how to do it well, right? And authentically, because you care, not because you're trying to make a sale.
Right.
So I love that. And what is, as we round this out, at the 6th common sense strategy? Relationships
take time. They take patience. They take perseverance. I talk about a story where there's a shout out to Nadine, if you're listening. It took me 5 years. She was an executive at a former customer of mine. Took 5 years to build that relationship, but it's tight as tight can be. I could text her right now. I'd be willing to bet she'd text us back when on this call. I haven't worked at that company in 4 years.
Wow.
Right. And it just gives steps and stories that, like, I even think about, there's a gentleman I'm coaching right now, and he wants to be promoted so quick. And all he's focusing on is that. And he's been there 10 months. And I'm like, so this is your idea, not theirs yet. You're not showing your leadership team why they should promote. All you're doing is bringing negative energy. Person said, let's change your mindset. Let's focus on what you do have control over. Let's focus on building great relationships. And all of a sudden they're going to be like, man, he or she's doing amazing things. We should probably promote them. Great idea, Mr. and Mrs. Boss. It's their idea, not yours. So it just reminding people that, to one, give yourself grace in this business development process. It's hard. It's not easy. But when you commit to it long-term, realizing that like Simon Sinek says, it's an infinite game. It takes time. And I know as soon as we don't admit to that you got to do it the right way. And I found that over my now 25 years of doing what I'm doing, those 6 things were the things that helped me sell it at an elite level when I was in corporate.
I love that. This is really powerful information. And this is like the core of your book, Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. So tell our listeners where they can find that.
Well, it's on Amazon. It's on my website, caseyjacox.com/book, and I will say, to be the power of, if I'm leading with coachability, our esteemed host of the show coached me before we started. And so she gave me great advice about it. And so if I'm going to be coachable, I'm leading from the front here. I'm being coachable. I'm going to make sure that redirect is exactly the way it should look, to make it easier for all you to go out and buy it.
That's great. Well, I'm going to go out and buy it for sure. I really love the concept that it's really, when we ditch the ego, when we're really in it to be authentic, and we want to be the best people we can be, we're going to show up in a way that will naturally build relationships. So I thank you for these great gems of insight, and I'm excited to hear the successes as people start to put them together. Casey, thank you so much for joining us for Making Sales Social. I know that your insights will have a significant impact on our listeners.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening, and join us again for more special guest instructors bringing you marketing, sales training, and social selling strategies that will set you apart. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest episodes from the Making Sales Social podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.